Selamat pagi, semua. It's a great privilege to be here at the World Forum. Sometimes I feel like an interloper because it's only in the last 2 years that I've begun to see the relationship between public relations and my scholarship, which is in leadership. So my research is in public leadership, particularly the way in which our public organizations, our nations, our community leaders manage the challenges, and we've already heard some of them. And you know, when I started working more with colleagues on public relations and strategic communications, I realized that these were two big bubbles, like soap bubbles. And you know, two things can happen when you have two big bubbles from soap. When they bang together, they either bounce apart or they become larger together. And what's happened in my academic career is that my interest in public leadership has been reinforced and strengthened by my now study within public relations leadership. Okay, so my apologies. So we've heard a lot today already. Let me continue this discussion of convergence. We've heard a lot today already about what public relationship needs to do. We've looked about how it can do this, the wonderful work that's gone on in terms of the development of standards, the focus that Professor Ann reminds us of ethics, the power of new paradigms that Professor Jesper talked about. I'm really going to spend my few minutes not talking about what, not talking about how, but talking about why. So the reason for the passion and the work that we must mobilize is critical. So I'm going to talk about the 21st century as being a very difficult place in which to be a public relations leader, in which to develop our students and next generations. And I want to focus on cultural relations because I think our intercultural context is the greatest challenge we face. So I'm going to do 4 things very quickly. Remind you of what's already been said about the interdependencies and the power of the unknown. To talk about diversity as a treasure that we must reinforce, we must harness and mobilize, and to look at some solutions. My big question for you, and the question that I've been focused on for my new book, which I'll plug at the end, is whether we understand enough about the context in which we're in. We think we do. This is a room full of big ideas, of good ideas. We've heard a lot of ideas already. The degree to which we understand those ideas is critical if we want to implement change as a consequence. I think we're confronting a false binary in much of our conversation and research. We know that the global context in which we operate is complex. We know there are so many dilemmas and trade-offs. The good we see over here becomes a bad over there. It's a world in which, for me, my interest is on the consequences rather than the inputs and what we do. And understanding all this can be quite paralyzing, even for an academic. I observe that you, as public relations leaders, and you are all leaders here in this forum, you deal with this with one of 2 things. You either cling tighter to what you know, you cling to your certainties, or you get madder and madder and crosser by reducing the world to simple slogans. We know that's a problem from the first couple of plenary sessions, which describe the challenges we face. The choice we're faced is often one between righteous anger and resigned apathy. Just think of the discussions going on now in Baku in the COP. We know there's a problem. We know there's complex relationships. And what public relations leaders have to do is remove the false binary between being angry about that, why don't they do more, or being apathetic about that, they can't do more. So I'm going to set you some homework today that looks at how you locate your purpose, how we focus on the why of the changes we need for the progress that we need to make. A focus not on what, how, or where public relations, you're experts on that. The ideas are strong. A focus more on why. So let me look at the framework. Like Prof. Jesper, I like my models and frameworks too. The framework for my thinking and my research has been around what's going to happen in the next generation. Where should we focus the reasons, the purpose of our work as leaders in public relations or in any other field? And these are the 5 things you'll know that for me have resulted from the conversations that I've had with several dozens of world leaders over the last 2 years of research. So the purpose of our work is to build resilience, to build sustainability, to capture intelligence. I'm not worried about artificial intelligence at all unless we put it in one box and only think of it as one box. I tell my students, I want you to be good at artificial intelligence by being good at being intelligent. The intelligent use of technology is what's brought humankind to where it is now. I don't talk at any time in my work about transformation. I think I'm quite critical of transformation because I think it continues us in this paradigm of linearity, of going from A to B. We transform from here and we want to arrive there. I talk about adaptation, how we adapt, how we think and feel as we move forward. Transformation, in many ways, disregards successes of the past. It says we just have to look forward. But my model is based heavily on the work of my friend Ronnie Heifetz at Harvard Kennedy School, and he will tell you, to make progress, we must treasure things in our past, we must be honest about discarding things that are no longer relevant, but above all, we must learn how to innovate, as Prof. Jesper reminded us earlier. In addition to adaptation, we need to be reflective. These are the skill sets that I want to encourage in our early career researchers, in our next generation leaders. Can you be reflective? Can you move forward thinking about the consequences rather than the actions? So mobilizing competencies and impact, those of you who know my work will know this is quite familiar. These are the things that are important for the 21st century, and we've heard a lot about them already. Being open, transparency, being curious, questioning all the time, but most importantly, let me add, being comfortable with paradox. Reflect on that. As I said to you, your homework. This isn't a list that I will go through methodically now or with great energy or passion. This is a list of 12 things which drive my research on the importance of interculturality. Interculturalism is the greatest challenge that we face, both in our communications and in our coexistence. This is a world of great diversity, which is a great treasure, but we manage that treasure so badly. It worries us, we struggle with it, we fail to cope. One of the consequences of climate change will be the further mass movement of people around our planet. 120 million people currently on the move, displaced from their homes, and they cause conflict wherever they arrive, they cause unease and anxiety. We have to manage that as a global issue. But these questions are fundamental, and these are the questions that I encourage us to be curious about as we move forward. There are no right and wrong answers to the questions. That's not the purpose of the question. The purpose of the question is not to find an answer, it's to provoke a way of doing, a way of being. So where did we come from? How did we get where we are? Prof. Jesper earlier had a great analysis of the shift of change of industrial practices from craft through to the modern age. What's our sense of shared human identity and history? Do we focus on our common relationships when we think about each other together moving forward? Do we always view history as a history of winners and losers? When I was at school, that's how we learned history. These were the wars we fought, and these are the ones we won, and these are the ones we didn't win, and so forth. My list is long. Can we listen rather than just project our voices? Surely that is a huge responsibility for public relations and strategic communication. Be a communicator who listens first and has voice second. And this wonderful question about the voices of our students in the development of our curriculum is a good example of that. Can we talk to people with whom we disagree? Not easily. This is a room of believers. You are all people passionate about public relations. That's why you're here. How often do we find ourselves in positions talking with people who are skeptical, who are cynical, who have views very different to our own? They're the skills we need to capture. There's the comfort we need to develop. Are we resilient? Can we manage failure? Not easy in life, and public leaders generally find it really difficult to admit that they fail. We know the importance, however, of learning by our mistakes. Are we always on and never off? Are we in the box or out of the box? Reflect on some of these questions as we move forward. And in a polarizing world, how do we really know what data is correct and what is misleading or misinformation? So my 10-point action plans, I'm not just somebody who asks questions. This is what we can do. And I only offer on this short presentation for you to be provoked into thinking the difference between who you are and what you do. Take back control. That doesn't mean that you take back power. Professor Ann was exactly right. We share power. Power isn't control. Control is confidence and comfort. Be curious, I've said already. Find your purpose. Always ask yourself, as I do, when I get up in the morning, why are you here? What are you going to achieve? What's your purpose? Find voice. Find it in unexpected and unusual places and amplify it. Don't just think about your own voice. Find community in the same way. Think of the community, the place where you live, the neighbors that you share with, as the real grounding and strength of moving forward in our polarizing world. Find how to coexist. That's a skill. We can do it. We do it within the Global Alliance, so why can't we do it in every other context? Coexist with difference. Don't be worried about someone who is different in culture, in history, in religion, in food tastes, or in clothes. Embrace that as a rich diversity of humankind. Find out how to be kind. It's not difficult when you try. Mobilize technology. Make it work for us and not us for them. I tell my students, use AI to write your papers. Don't worry about that. Don't hide the fact that you do. If you don't use it, you're irresponsible with technology because it is better than you are at summarizing, at synthesis. But I'm going to assess you not by what you prepare in writing with AI. I'm going to assess you through conversation because I'm going to put humanity at the center of contemporary and future prospects. That way we keep AI in its place, a very strong and important place. Think globally, as we've heard already. We are not a small island, any of us. Everything has consequences way beyond our own community and neighborhood. And be good ancestors. This is a really important chapter in my book. It says, when you act, when you do things, when you think about public relations leadership in the next generation, think of the inheritance you will leave as a consequence. Be a good ancestor.
Professor
Finally,
Mike, we have 1 more minute.
1 minute. I get carried away. I'm sorry. I have my 4 Ps of how to make purposeful progress for public relations. And these slides, I'm sure, are available, and I won't spend ages going through them. Purpose, be clear what matters to you in the role that you have and in your private life as well. Be the change yourself. Don't expect others to change. Make sure you're clear about your values and be responsible. There'll be later sessions at this forum about. There are only 2 things that matter about the future, and leadership particularly. Be global, be responsible. Be practical. We heard from Prof. Jesper about the importance of improvisation. I call this having ingenuity. Have empathy. Look around you, not just in front of you. Be green and control your time.
If you control your time, Professor Hari, 10 more seconds. We want to control your time.
Look at who is your team and tell them. And finally, be personal. Don't ever be afraid of daydreaming. Eat more plants, that's also important. So I've talked about the context and interdependencies, and I apologize for taking too much time. Locate the reason for why we do what we do. Don't stop with ideas. Move to implementation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hari.